Can you be more specific in what you're saying? Well, just be more specific in general in your argument. Okay. Let's come back to you, Sarah. Let's come back to you later on when you've developed your idea a little bit more, because I still don't think you're making very, very general points, and we're looking for something a little bit more specific. All right. Let's actually, because it looks. All right. Let's actually move on to our mini lesson right now. Again, when we transition to our mini lesson, we do it silently. We take out our composition books and we give instructions down what's on the board. This should be absolutely silent. There should be no talking at all. I have one person right now who's talking. Everyone else is doing a good job transitioning silently. Every single person on the same page. So today we're talking about the history of schools in Anacostia. Last week we began talking about history, way back starting with the American Indians, then looking at sort of the specific history of the historic Anacostia district, of Berry Farms, how that developed. Today we're looking at schools, and prior to the 1950s, schools in Anacostia, like in much of the United States, especially in the southern states, schools were segregated by race. And that was the same here in DC, sadly. One really important thing is that because schools were segregated by race, it was really difficult for black students to get an education. There were a lot more challenges that they faced because of this forced racial segregation. Gotcha.
So, I would in my pastime in my old school, in my history class, I would like to kind of see what y'all need. But he showed us these videos, whatever. And was it true, if blacks and whites was not really allowed to drink from the same water fountain?
Yes, that was one definite way that people were racially segregated. When we look at the civil rights movement, we're going to see a lot of examples of racial segregation. But it was things as simple as the water fountain and restrooms. Actually, today, for instance, if you go to the Pentagon, so if any of your parents work for the Defense Department, there are actually tons of bathrooms at the Pentagon. And the reason for that, way more than they would ever have needed, the reason for that was because at the time they built it, Virginia still had racially segregated public facilities, and so they built twice as many bathrooms as they needed, half for white employees and half for African American employees. Sir?
What was this wasn't it in the South?
It was going on in places like North Carolina, but sadly it was also going on in places like DC. Schools were racially segregated in Maryland and Virginia. So this area saw the exact same things. One sort of important point, one important point is that there was no high school for African American students in Anacostia. And remember, if text is red, we don't need to write it down. We just write down the text as black or as green. The photographs that you see at the bottom of the screen right there, these are photographs from Anacostia High School. So there was a high school in Anacostia, but because of racial segregation, it only served white students. So there was no high school for black students in Anacostia.
So you mean black teachers couldn't teach them, black people at education, they couldn't teach in no public school?
Yeah, most African American teachers would teach exclusively at all black schools.
Neighborhood segregated?
Yes, neighborhoods are segregated. Remember, what was the town that we learned about, that, one of the first towns in Anacostia that was racially segregated until Frederick Douglass came along? You can raise your hand, tell me, Juwan.
I think you couldn't sell your house to a black man.
Yeah, you couldn't sell your house. Do you remember the name of that town by raising your hand? Uniontown, good. So Uniontown is an example of a place in Anacostia that was racially segregated.
Like I'm talking about like today.
Oh, today?
Yeah.
No, it's illegal for places to be racially segregated. And if anyone tries to discriminate against someone in terms of selling their house or renting their house to someone because of race, they can get into a lot of trouble for it. So it's not to say that it never happens, but people who do it are breaking the law.
Like, so what if like you walk in a store and there be like a white person in it and you be like, and you disrespect him? What happened? Because he's white. What if you disrespect him because he's white?
Well, I don't know if anything would necessarily happen because they were white. If you were disrespectful to someone, any number of things could happen, but I don't necessarily think it changes.
Wait, do you mean like in stores today? Like if someone,
In school today.
well, usually, I mean, that does happen all the time, but someone's not going to take legal action usually if something like that is going on. And that's why there's still a lot of communities where they're completely segregated. Like even in this community, there aren't a lot of white people living here, and it's not necessarily because of like legality, so legal things, you know, but it's because just of cultural forces that are kind of shaping how people, where people decide to live, you know, and where they feel most comfortable. So it's almost like these cultural forces are creating that segregation rather than the law.
And one of the things we're actually looking at later on this week are, and for the first thing we talked about was how in the 1940s Anacostia was primarily white, and in about 20 or 30 years that sort of flipped. And we're going to look at some of the reasons why that happened, especially particularly at that time. Let's take the next point up here, then I'll take additional questions. So African American students in Anacostia would have to go, the only black school in DC was Dunbar High School. And so they would have to walk to Dunbar from Anacostia. So in order to get a high school education, black students had to walk probably about 3 or 4 miles each way to get it. One important point is that Dunbar actually back then was actually a really, really good school. And so it was a place that actually people tried to get into, and people would sort of like sometimes fake their address to get into and things like that. It was a really, really excellent school back then too. Sarah, thank you for raising your hand.
But your mom said something about like when you go to stores like you disrespect like you like I watched this movie and the black man like try to get smart with the little white man. They tried fighting and stuff, and the police and the little white police came to beat the black man.
Which would be an example of what? Racism, exactly, yeah. Which sadly, of course, does happen. Joanne?
Yeah, Steve.
I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm sorry.
Say it was an old black corner store.
Okay.
White person go in there, the black person say, I'm not about to give you no service. And the white man say, I'm gonna pay you more. They still don't, they refuse it. Can't he do something about it? Or the white person say, just go up and walk and 3 miles to go to the white store.
Well, I mean, like that, in that hypothetical situation, like there are laws against racial discrimination, and that basically goes for everyone, right? So, like, if someone chose not to, like, depending, like, no matter if they were white, black, Asian, Hispanic, American Indian, if someone chose to deny service to someone because of their race, that would be illegal in any situation, correct? Yeah.
Okay, so is this one of the reasons why Dunbar and Ballou is such bad schools? But I'm not like that. I'm not even gonna say that because I like Dunbar and Ballou. So is this one of the reasons why people claims Dunbar and Ballou is a bad school because a lot of black kids go there and all that good
What do you
stuff,
think?
that kind of nature?
What do you think?
I think yes.
Okay. Why?
But well, I think yes because some people just because back in the days there was only school for black people want to be judgmental and just say that. But then again, I'm like stuck in between because it's not really the school that's bad, it's the students that's in the school. And half the time it's not all the students that's bad. So I think well, yes, because a lot of black students were in the past.
I think that if you ask people who I think that some people definitely have the perception that these schools are that